Hello, Mavericks, and welcome back to another episode of Discovering the Maverick Factor. I'm your host, Jewel Washington, and today we have an exciting conversation with Lowell Davis, our Vice President of Student Affairs, from exciting things that he's doing with student life and new initiatives to foster a sense of community and belonging. Dr. Davis is committed to ensuring that every Maverick thrives during their time here at UTA. So welcome, Dr. Davis.
Thanks so much.
All right, so we're just going to jump in there. Is that okay?
Let's roll.
All right. So I want to kind of get to know you a little bit better, and can you kind of tell the listeners just a little bit more about you and what motivates you to pursue this type of career in student affairs, and how did you bring your journey here to UTA?
All right, well, this is going to be interesting. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. Graduated from Lincoln Humanities and Communications Magnet High School in what I like to affectionately call sunny South Dallas. And when I left to go to college, I never thought I would return to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I was one of those individuals, I was so excited to leave home, I just never thought that I would return. I went to Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, and I ended up serving as Student Government Association president. And at that time, the president of Hampton, Dr. William R. Harvey, would bring class president, student government president, and vice president, Ms. Hampton, and a few other people to the table once a month for a meeting that he called Administrative Council. Okay. And it was at that meeting we had an opportunity to share with the university administration things that we were hearing, issues that we wanted to bring forward to help to make Hampton University better. Because of that, students would come to me with various issues or challenges that they were having, and I remember one person in particular. It was my senior year. It was her senior year. I will say her first name was Sharon, and she came by and she said, they're going to kick me out of school. She owed money, and I believe she didn't sign up for a payment plan, or maybe her first payment was missing, and the university was going to kick her out of school. So she came to me to honestly be an advocate. Okay. And I scheduled a meeting with Dr. Joanne Haysbert, who at that time was maybe the provost, or she was acting president at Hampton University, and really asked her, what can I do? Here's a person who's in her senior year. She's on track to graduate. She needs some money so that she can stay in school. She's living on campus. And I'm just here to advocate on her behalf to see whatever we can do to help her to graduate from this institution. Dr. Haysbert asked me the young woman's name, and all that I know is that she was able to remain in school and that she graduated. And it was really because of that experience I decided that I wanted to kind of continue to advocate for students who are on college campuses. I pursued a master's degree in counseling, thinking that I wanted to run a counseling center, that is where I thought I could provide or give the most impact on college students. During that experience, if anyone out there, you are a licensed professional counselor, you know you have to do a number of hours to be certified. And it was during my internship that I talked with a client, and someone informed me that the client attempted to take his life. I went to the hospital. I met the client's parents. I met the client's sister. Everything that he shared with me, I had a front row seat to interacting with these individuals, to talking with them, and to understanding more about his life. And I went back to my supervising professor, Dr. Hall, and she kind of shook her head and said, Lowell, counseling is not for you. And it wasn't that it wasn't necessarily for me professionally, but she said, Lowell, you care. Yeah. And you will take each and every one of these student problems with you home every day, and that is not sustainable. Yeah. And she introduced me to really student affairs and higher education administration student affairs. And so because of that experience, I ended up going to Indiana University, pursuing my PhD in higher education administration and student affairs, and decided from that point that I thought one day I want to serve as a vice president for student affairs so I can continue to advocate for students and student needs. I worked at 4 different institutions: the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, Western Carolina University, where I worked in both academic and student affairs, University of North Carolina, Wilmington, where I served as vice chancellor for student affairs. And a year ago, UT Arlington had an opening, which gave me an opportunity to come back to a place that I said I would never come back to, but to come back home. And it feels natural. it is very easy. I tell people I don't need to use my navigation when I'm here. And so I'm just glad to serve as the Vice President for Student Affairs and glad to be back in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Yeah, I think that's such a wonderful story, how you let your personality traits kind of lead your career, which is really cool. And so speaking of your, you think about your experience, what do you feel like? You kind of talked a little bit about it when you said you care. So what are some of the other key qualities of an effective student affairs leader, and how do you cultivate those qualities in your team?
One, you have to care about your students. And I'm going to share this, and I hope that I don't, get emotional. I started here a little over a year ago, and I arrived to work. I actually came a couple of days before I was scheduled to start on my first day. Mm-hmm. One of those things that you want to drive to see what traffic is going to look like and map out your route and direction. And there was a student who was working the front desk, Dennis, the first person that I ever really interacted with, and I talked to. Dennis did not didn't know my role or anything. I just tell me about yourself, what's your major, all of these things. And Dennis worked the front desk throughout the summer, the fall semester, and in the spring, I was typing at my computer and I got a Teams message that Dennis was no longer with us, that Dennis was no longer a Maverick. And I became emotional in the Teams meeting. And I told the individuals who were on the Teams call, I said, I'm so sorry. I just received an email and I need to go handle something. And I emailed the people who were part of that meeting later on. And I said, I'm so sorry that this happened. I apologize. And a staff member at UTA said, Dr. Davis, I appreciate the emotion because it showed me as a staff member in the Division of Student Affairs that you honestly and truly care about our students. Yeah. And so I'm saying caring about the students that you work with on a daily basis, you want to be honest, you want to be transparent, you want to have a servant heart, and you want to be approachable, and last but not least, you want to be a good collaborator. And those are a lot of things, but in order for us to impact the lives of students that we work with on a daily basis, we need to have all of those key qualities.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing that story with us. So as a leader in student affairs, how do you stay ahead of those trends or those challenges that universities across the country are facing?
I'm going to first of all talk about my professional network. And there are 4 people besides individuals in the UT system that are vice presidents of student affairs at very different institutions. One is a vice president of student affairs at a historically black university. One is at another large R1 flagship institution. Well, 2 are actually there. And I call them all the time. What's going on? What are you hearing? Are you having these things happen on your campus? What are you doing about it? What is your president saying? What is your provost saying? I actually talked to the VP of Student Affairs at UT Dallas yesterday. We talk often about what are some things that you are seeing as we are both dealing with students in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and we text and make sure that, is this happening on your campus? How are you handling this? And so I would say my professional network is really initially how I try to stay up to date with what's happening in the field. I also attempt to attend a number of professional conferences. I'm active. I serve on the executive committee for the Council of Student Affairs for APLU. NASPA is our huge student affairs conference that I attend. But I also think in order for us to do our jobs and for us to do our jobs well, we have to expand beyond the traditional student affairs conferences and doing that work. And so I become active as a reviewer with SAC-COC, which is our regional accrediting agency. And I try to just get myself out there to help me to understand really what are trends that we are seeing in academic affairs that may impact our students. What are some financial forecast modeling? I've never been to NACUBO, but I try to read their periodicals about what's happening in higher education. And so I am a person, my Sunday school teacher used to tell me that you have to be active and not passive. And so I try to be active in picking up various articles of literature, and periodicals that talk about higher education. And that's how I attempt to remain active in understanding what's happening in student affairs.
Okay. I think that's really good, Lowell, that you share that, because I think so many people think that once you get to a vice president level, you're still not learning. And you just demonstrated to us that you're always learning, no matter how high you get, what role you have. It's always learning and bringing in new and fresh ideas and learning what others are doing. So thank you for sharing that.
I like to tell people I'm learning every day. And one thing that people don't understand, we usually, as administrators on college campuses and as faculty and staff members, we get older. But on an average, our student population remains the same. And so we have to continue to read and stay up to date, because we're the ones who are changing, where in most cases our student body traditionally or really and historically remains about the same.
Yeah, makes sense. So speaking of our students, what are some of the recent programs or initiatives that you've introduced that you feel have made the biggest impact to our student life here at UTA?
So this is something that is small, but something I'm personally passionate about, but I think is going to pay dividends for UTA and hopefully the University of Texas system. I am passionate about students who age out of the foster care system, who are in college, or students who may be homeless, who are engaged and enrolled students at our institutions. And so I was able to hire a program manager to help us and specifically work with students who've aged out of the foster care system, but who come to UTA. And we're in the process of working with a number of different grantors in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex to try to bring high school students who are in foster care to UTA for our summer enrichment program to help them to understand what college life is like, but help them to realize that college is actually possible. And so as our numbers, we have over 40,000 students, and people may say that's a small population, but it will pay dividends. Less than 6% of students who age out of foster care actually earn a baccalaureate degree. And if I can get us to 50% or 75% of students who age out of foster care but come to UTA, we as an institution and the Division of Student Affairs, we've defied odds. And that kind of defines me for who I am as an individual. I also introduced Mavs on the Town. I believe the arts are important. And in higher education, I'll just say historically, maybe in divisions of student affairs, we have gotten away from exposing our students to the arts. We have students who major in music. We have wonderful things that are happening in the arts at UTA. And it was clear to me that we needed to expose our students to the arts that are taking place, not only on campus, but in our community. And so I gave a unit in the Division of Student Affairs $30,000 to take our students, money to create life-changing experiences for students. And so I have students who have come up to me and said that they went to see Tina Turner, the musical, or they went to see MJ, the musical, or even last week they went to see The Wiz, or they've seen Les Mis, or they've been to operas or symphonies. And those things are important. I was texting someone earlier today. They were talking about the arts, and this is how old I am. I went to see Lion King in New York the second week that it opened. My parents believed that the arts were important and that I should be exposed to the arts as a kid. And so as a vice president of student affairs, I want to ensure that our students have the same opportunities. And so created Mavs on the Town. And last but not least, we revitalized our homecoming experience in the Division of Student Affairs. And if you were not there last year, I hope you will come this year. We had a tailgate like no other, where alums mentioned to me that they were receiving calls saying, "Are you at UTA? Oh, I need to come by UTA. I hear it is jumping at UTA." And so we were able to host a tailgate, which probably had, I'm going to just estimate, about 1,000 of our alums, students, faculty, and staff. President Cowley came by, but the energy was really high. And after that, we had a sold-out step show. We had a homecoming concert that was that we brought back. And so we are really excited about what homecoming is going to do here this year, and we hope we can surpass attendance and numbers from last year.
That makes sense. That's wonderful. Wonderful to hear that. So I'd like to kind of go along that path and talk about how you create a sense of belonging for students who may not traditionally engage with a campus culture.
You know, that's an interesting question. I believe that we have to group our students, and we have to do specific outreach. And so one thing that I'm working with my student affairs team on is what are the categories of students where we know that they are being impacted by programming somewhere else. And I know this may sound interesting, but if you're in the marching band, you probably have a professor that you can talk to, or you have peers, because that's a group, and you are connecting to the university through the marching band. If you're in honors college, okay, there's programming for you in honors college. What are the students who are not visiting the MAC, not in honors college, not in the marching band, they haven't signed up for a student org? Those are the students that I want to reach out to make sure that they are getting the support that they need. We launched a new platform this year called Mav Engage, which is an online platform. Yesterday, we have about 6,000 students, a little more than 6,000 students who have signed up. And this is from the first day of school to right now. So I feel pretty good. And if Michael watches this, we're going to get to 10 and 15,000 by the end of this semester. But we had an event yesterday, and we sent a message out, a text message, right before the event. And there was standing room only.
Wow.
And so I know President Cowley was probably happy for Cookies with Cowley as attendance surpassed what we've had in the past. And students asked a lot of questions, and there was just a lot of engagement and a lot of buzz around what was happening in Palo Duro. And they really seemed like they wanted to engage and hear what the president was saying. And so by really taking students in certain groups and using technology and platforms to help us to figure out which students are not active and engaged, that's how I'm trying to create a culture of engagement at UTA.
Okay, that makes sense. So what have been some of the biggest challenges in keeping students engaged on campus?
That's a hard question. You know, we have about 5,000 students who live with us, and we're in the process of wrapping up Maverick Hall, where we will have about an additional 550 students that will live with us. And I don't think we're going to stop our residential housing footprint with Maverick Hall. And so we are introducing a new position in the division, a night and weekend program manager. We will have more students who are living with us, and so we need to make sure that we have additional night and weekend programming for those students. And we're already doing this work, but because we will have so many more students, you have to think that possibly could mean 500 more students who are going to the MAC, 500 more students who will have to eat on campus. And so I want to make sure that those students have something to do, that they are actively engaged in programs and programming on campus. And when I arrived, a lot of people said UTA is a commuter school. And I applaud the president and President Cowley and Provost Brown for helping us to really change that narrative and helping us to create residential programming for our students and helping us to really kind of shake the term of being a commuter school off and know that students can come to UTA and have a traditional residential experience just like they can at any other institution in the UT system or really any other institution of higher education.
Okay. So what is one of the unique Maverick moments that you've experienced at UTA that has left a lasting impression on you, and how did it influence your perspective or journey?
I'm going to say going to Dennis's funeral in Austin. I believe I sent you a text message. That is a hard thing to do, especially if it's a student that you saw every day coming to work. And I went to his funeral, and I mean, beyond standing room, there were not enough seats. And even the funeral director said that we have to vacate because they could possibly call the fire marshal. And there were students from UTA who drove to Austin to be with a student that they worked with. They were on a club sports team. They drove to Austin just to say their kind of final goodbyes, and standing room only. And not only students, but also other staff members in the Division of Student Affairs. That let me know people care at this institution. You know, we didn't pay people to go. Right. We didn't reimburse staff members for travel for going. Right. They did this on their own. Yeah. They took a Saturday out of their schedule and time to go and to support not only Dennis, but to support his family. And so that was a changing point for me, that students and staff and faculty at this institution honestly and truly care about each other. Yeah. And if you can't rally around a parent's family when that happens, something is wrong. And I remember something that I call every parent of a deceased student. And it just does something to you. Yeah. But to hear the stories from the parents and what they share about their sons and daughters and how appreciative they are that someone at this institution called them to say that they care. And something we're doing this year, we are sending a plant or flower for a deceased student and coming up with rules and regulations for how we mourn our deceased students. And actually, our UTA ambassadors are working on a memorial service for any student, faculty, or staff member, what we're calling a fallen Maverick, where we will recognize them at a ceremony every spring. And our students are leading this effort. And so that, to me, is, as it is a new initiative, it's a pivotal point in my journey here at UTA, but it tells me that our students, our faculty and staff, we care about each other.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. So what does it take to be a visionary leader?
Patience, gosh, understanding, collaboration, and buy-in, knowing that you may have a vision to do something, may not be where everyone else wants to go. And that's hard. When you want to come somewhere or you want to do something and not everyone wants to kind of go or join what you are trying to do. And so I've learned to slow down, to create buy-in and help people to understand what we are trying to do. And that is not easy. I like to tell people, I jokingly say, that some people like to have a Burger King philosophy. They want it their way. And I had a previous supervisor who would always say, "This isn't Burger King, Lowell. You don't get to have it your way." And it's not necessarily that this is a Burger King or we don't get to have it our way, but how can we bring people together to help them to understand what we're trying to do and how we are trying to get there and how important it is to include them along for the ride. Right. Because everything that we do should be about students and how we can support students. It's never personal. You know, it should never be about faculty. Well, it should be about faculty. It should be about staff. But we are all here to support the students who come to UTA. And so collaboration, bringing people in early for buy-in and trying to reach a consensus, to me is, I think, just some kind of key elements and qualities you need to lead people and to have a vision.
Okay. All right. So if you had to describe your Maverick factor in 3 words, what would they be and why?
Bold, brave, and exciting. Okay. So we have to be bold as Mavericks. We have to be willing to step out and to do some things that we may not have done before. And that takes vision, but that also takes courage. And it is always comfortable to do the things in which we have always done. But anyone will tell you that I have never been that person. I had an opportunity to hear our provost speak maybe a couple of months ago. And there was a person who knew me in elementary school, Mr. Peace. Born and raised in Dallas, as I said, but Mr. Peace knew me as an elementary school student, probably in the 4th grade.
Wow.
And he talked to the provost and he said, Lowell has always been like this. Like he's always tried to lead and always wanted to just do things and would jump in. But always you could see as a little kid, he always kind of cared. And he shared a story about the class was being disruptive and how I told the students to quiet down because the teacher was trying to teach. Now, to be brave and to do that as a 9-year-old,
right.
he shared that's just who I am, and that's a part of who I am and part of my DNA. And so I'm not afraid to take chances. I'm not afraid to fail. I look at those things as kind of learning lessons. So I think we have to be bold and we have to be brave. But we also have to have the courage to do those things and to step out there to do the things in which we know that we can do and not be afraid of failure. Oftentimes, I think people in higher education are afraid to try something because they don't want it to fail because they look at it as something that's public. But it's okay.
Yeah.
It just means let's recalibrate. Let's take a step back and figure out why this failed, and let's possibly try it again. And so we've launched this thing in student affairs, something else that's new, Bright Ideas, where staff have the opportunity to submit a bright idea that we will fund one time. And if it works, we will try to look for recurring dollars to keep some of those things going. And it's worked.
Yeah.
Last year, we supported 100 staff members to become Gallup certified strength coaches, where they can then go out into various classrooms. They can work with orientation, our leadership center to help them to understand their strengths. And that was a bright idea that someone submitted. And so I don't have a share or a monopoly on all of the best ideas. And so I've taken that to my staff and say, you come up with a bright idea. You think that you can do it in this fiscal year, Jennifer and John. You can do it in this fiscal year. Then let's try to do it and let's see what happens. And if it's something that's going to change the culture of this institution, make our students more engaged, then we can do it. So, yes.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So that's a wrap on today's episode of Discovering the Maverick Factor. We hope that you've enjoyed getting to know Dr. Lowell Davis and learning more about the incredible work that he's doing to foster a vibrant and supportive campus community here at UTA. Thank you, Dr. Davis, for sharing your time, your insights with us today. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with your fellow Mavericks. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and keep discovering the Maverick Factor.